For the benefit of family and friends in Egypt, what do you think about the Chinese vaccine?
So we don't know. The Chinese have several vaccines. Most of them are the type of the inactivated virus. We don't yet have many of the efficacy trials. They have not yet shared, or maybe have not finished, many of the efficacy trials of those inactivated vaccines. Now, that doesn't mean they don't work. They probably will work, but how effective are they? We don't know yet. We have to wait and see. Now, as I mentioned, we grow the virus and then kill it chemically. So sometimes you can kill it chemically and overkill, and therefore modify the spike protein, and therefore it may not be as efficacious. But until we get data, we don't know how they will behave. But having said that, the polio vaccine is a very good example of an inactivated vaccine that works perfectly well. 100% efficacious. So it's something to bear in mind. It may very well work. We just have to wait and see.
Okay. Here's a specific question. Is the vaccine recommended to MS patients or immune-compromised patients?
So the vaccine itself is not going to harm any person who's immune compromised. There is no reason to believe that the vaccine would harm them. Having said that, they may not be able to mount a good immune response because they are immune compromised. So if you're taking something to reduce your immunity, a drug to reduce your immunity, clearly this means that you are not going to be able to produce as many antibodies as you would if you were completely healthy with a full immune system. When we grow old, like me and others, our immune system is also not as good, and therefore we don't produce as much as a younger individual. These are not exactly the same analogy, but it just tells you at the end you may not mount a good immune response. Having said that, if clinically there is no harm that the clinicians see in getting the vaccine, even if I'm immune compromised, I'd still take it. It's better than nothing if there is no harm in taking. But a clinician would also need to answer that question.
Okay. Again, you answered part of this question before, but I will mention it again because it has a specific example here. How do you explain that some people develop some side effects after taking the vaccine? Example, Bell's palsy.
Yeah, so we don't understand a lot about that, and why it happens, I don't know. Why certain people get it, we don't know exactly. We're still looking into it. You can imagine every one of those is being looked at it every which way. We don't yet have the answer. The important thing to know is that all of these resolve within days, either on their own or by medication. So it's not something to worry about, but we don't know the etiology. We don't know why it happens in some and not others. At least I don't know yet, but it's being researched.
Okay, another one. How can we get all reported adverse effects that possible to happen or already happened for who received it?
Yeah,
who received the vaccine, obviously.
So all of this is available publicly. I mean, you can, if you have the time and are not easily bored by a ton of data and tables, you can actually see it for yourself even. All of the adverse events in all of the people who have been immunized currently, at least with the Pfizer vaccine, because it's already been published and available, but all other vaccines as well. So we'll get all of this information. Now, having said that, as I mentioned, we have maybe, let's call them 50,000 people have immunized before the vaccine got licensed. So the events that you will get will be events that happens 1 in 50,000. If the event happened 1 in a million, we wouldn't know that until we get more immunizations. But the world is watching and the world is following all adverse events for all vaccines. in all honesty, actually more than we've ever seen in other vaccines, because everybody's looking under the microscope for everything with these vaccines because they were developed very quickly.
Some questions are repeated,
Can
so
you hear
I'm
me, Nabi?
just, yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm just going through them
sure,
because they are real, true repetitions.
sure.
Nevertheless, I will ask this question again. It has a different twist. What is the advantage of mRNA vaccines over the traditional methods? Example, life attenuated vaccine.
So we actually don't have with a live attenuated example. Some are actually developing some, but it's not advanced. So it's likely not gonna be something that you would need to take in the future. The live attenuated, like let's say the oral polio vaccine is a live attenuated. The MMR is live attenuated. We don't, these are very old technology. We know how to do things a lot better than the live attenuated vaccines. So that's number one. So the comparison should be not with the live attenuated, but with the subunit vaccines, for example, because these are also traditional, like hepatitis B vaccine is a recombinant protein. Many of the more recent vaccines are recombinant.
Okay.
As opposed to the live attenuated of the past. So when you compare the RNA to, sorry, just to finish that, to compare the RNA to these traditional technologies, the RNA, these are the very first vaccines ever. The Pfizer vaccine is the first ever mRNA to be licensed. We now know that they can work very well. Some of us were skeptical in the beginning. I was not, but some were skeptical in the beginning. But now we know that they can be extremely efficacious. And therefore, I think you will see in the future many mRNA vaccines going forward. Sorry, Nabi, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think the next question is related. I'm jumping a few questions here to get to this. Might have joined later. I wanted to know why this completely new virus is using a completely new method of vaccine like mRNA, or has this technology been used before? Again, it's a different twist.
So as I mentioned, this is the very first time we use mRNA in a vaccine, a licensed vaccine. So as of a week ago, the world has seen the first ever mRNA vaccine to be licensed. Now, why are we using it now? Because the technology that we have with mRNA, we know mRNA. I can tell you, when I was a research scientist 25 years ago, I was thinking about why are we not getting a vaccine that's an mRNA instead of going through a protein. It was a dream then, but we know now that it's reality, and we just simply didn't have it before. As I'm saying, we are now working very hard to start using this technology for other vaccines in the future. So this will become very, very popular in the future because of the major success that we've seen with the COVID vaccine.
Okay. Again, another specific question for MS patients. It's contraindicated to give live vaccines, not asking about immunity, but triggering an attack.
Sure. So absolutely. I mean, so that's why I said we need a clinician. So those people who have MS, for example, would take either the subunit vaccine or the mRNA, because that's not a live virus. Having said that, as I mentioned, the live virus that we are using, or the virus vectors that we're using, are harmless in humans. But if we're still concerned, we shouldn't give it. We give mRNA or spike protein recombinant. We have options.
Okay. Just to be complete, I think you answered this question. Why were RNA vaccines not approved before?
Oh, it's simply the technology wasn't at par. The technology wasn't developed yet. Highly developed yet.
And if you don't mind, Dr. Fahim, can you please briefly comment on the efficacy of the different types of vaccines? You mentioned it in your presentation, but we have a little bit of time, and this is a question maybe somebody joined later.
Sure, absolutely. So the efficacy of the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, remember we only have three, well, actually four data that we can rely on. The two of them are the mRNA, the Pfizer and the Moderna, and both of them showed 95% efficacy. And actually both of them also prevented severe disease. So even the people who got infected after taking the mRNA of Pfizer or Moderna, they got a mild disease, not a severe case of the COVID-19. So that's important to know. The AstraZeneca one, this AstraZeneca/Oxford one, is actually showing efficacy of somewhere between 62 and 90. We still need to get a little bit more data to define whether that 90 is correct or not, although statistically it was correct. But we are doing some additional clinical trials with that. The difference between the mRNA vaccine and the vaccine from AstraZeneca, as I mentioned previously, is how the spike protein is presented to the human immune system. For the mRNA, as I mentioned, is the pre-fusion form. The AstraZeneca one was not stabilized in the pre-fusion form. And that may be part of the reason why it's not as efficacious, although it's very highly efficacious. 60 to 70 to 90% is very good. The last one that we have data for is the Russian one. We don't know anything about the Russian data. They indicated that their data showed 92% efficacy. And that is a viral vector similar to the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's a viral vector, adenovirus. But as I also mentioned, it's actually the first dose is one vaccine, the second dose is another vaccine. But they mentioned that they have 92% efficacy. That's the efficacy among all.
So you mean that they did not share the data?
All of them were safe. No. Correct. These are the ones that are published and we know about them. The Gamaleya, we just don't know a lot more about them. We know everything about the AstraZeneca, about the Pfizer and the Moderna, and a lot about the AstraZeneca, not everything. But the Gamaleya, we know little. But they mentioned it's 92.
And I guess the Novavax will be one that might come to Canada, and you don't have data for it yet?
Not yet. They just started the phase 3 or starting the phase 3 within the next few days. So the phase 3 is not, they have done phase 1, phase 2 and published, but not the phase 3 yet. But that's a subunit. That's one of the subunit vaccines. And they will be making a lot of doses. So there's a good likelihood that some of us may take the Novavax vaccine.
I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment, and I'll read it anyway, and you might want to jump on it. In your opinion, is there a vaccine that is safer than other? It's really a topic that is controversial and everyone is worried about it. What's your opinion?
So all of our vaccines, with all of the data that we have today, all of these vaccines that I mentioned, the Gamaleya vaccine, the Russian vaccine, we don't know a lot about, but we don't have to worry because it's not going to come to Canada or the US. But the Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, all of them are very safe vaccines, and there isn't, until you actually compare one vaccine to the next in the same clinical trial, you cannot say that they are totally comparable. So we can only say that each of them was very safe without any severe adverse events that causing any alarms. I hope that helps. But as I'm saying, until you actually, which probably will never happen, where you actually get a head-to-head comparison in a clinical trial between two vaccines, you can never say that one is better than the other for safety. They are all today are safe as we know it.
Excellent.